week on the Analog Circle podcast, we get a report that Phil Spencer has already addressed employees about the future of the Xbox brand, allegedly. We get some alleged specs and information about the PlayStation 6, and let me say the specs seem pretty beastly, but a little unrealistic. We get an update on the possibility of Starfield going to PS5 consoles. Oh, that's a story right there. We're gonna cover that. And we get some updated information on the new Jet Set Radio. All of these stories can be found here and more in episode 196 of the Analog Circle podcast. I am your host, Kiaun Mitchell, and welcome. Welcome to the show on this Super Bowl Sunday. As always, I want to thank you guys for being here. It is greatly appreciated. Now, if you guys do want to be a part of listener feedback, which could possibly record this Wednesday, it all depends on you guys because that is you guys' show. You can do it two different ways. You can either call in, and the phone number is 443-380-0281 and let your voice be heard, or you can email the show. And the email address is simply the Analog Circle Podcast at gmail.com. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get into what we all come here for, and that is the gaming news that went down. So let's get things started this week with Ubisoft's third quarter fiscal 2024 earnings that actually came with a bit of news pertaining to two upcoming titles. Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot said in an earnings letter to shareholders, quote, "Moving forward, we're gearing up for a very promising lineup for fiscal year 2025, including the upcoming release of Star Wars Outlaws in 2024, which should be a major milestone in the video game industry, especially given the undeniable appeal of this legendary franchise that will be coming for the first time to the open world territory, as well as Assassin's Creed, codename Red." Now, wait a minute. This is the first time that a Star Wars game is going open world? Wow. Man. Wow, that's very impressive. Never thought of it too much, but that's pretty sensational. For some reason, I thought we had a couple of open world Star Wars games, but maybe not. But like I said, he also brung up Assassin's Creed codename Red, which is set in the long-awaited feudal Japan universe. End of quote. Now, it was also revealed on the call that, quote, Star Wars Outlaws, end of quote, will release before the end of the year, and that, quote, Assassin's Creed codename Red, end of quote, will launch by March of 2025. Very interesting news here. First off, I'm probably going to continue to say it until the game actually releases. Star Wars Outlaws, I am so excited about this game. One of my most anticipated for the year. Just hearing that it's open world for the first time. And of course, we knew that this game was going to be open world. I had to give it a round of applause for being the first to actually go down this rabbit hole. So I'm very glad to hear that. I'm also very happy that Yves Guillemot also reinstated and said, like, doubled down on it, that it is going to release sometime this year, which is excellent for me. And going to the Assassin's Creed news, codename Red, taking place in feudal Japan, in a feudal Japan universe, as it were. That's actually awesome news as well, because I know for a fact that it has been years upon years upon years that many people have wanted to see the setting of Assassin's Creed take place during that time period. So knowing that that's going to launch by March of 2025, which is slightly over a year from now, is very, very good news for people that wanted to see that game in that setting, which I'm very interested to see how they actually pull it off, especially knowing that Rise of Ronin is actually going to be releasing sometime this year. Some people said that that game gave them kind of like Assassin's Creed vibes to a certain degree. I wonder if that will kind of damper the release of this Assassin's Creed codename Red. I wonder, will that slightly take away some of the excitement for an Assassin's Creed game, because it seems to be taking certain elements, small elements from Assassin's Creed, and actually implementing them into this title. I mean, of course, nobody does it like, well, I'm not going to say nobody does it like Assassin's Creed, but being that that is the original, as it were, and knowing that Ronin, Rise of Ronin it's coming behind it to a certain degree, and not saying that it's trying to be Assassin's Creed, because it doesn't seem like that is the case. But knowing how the graphics are looking on Rise of Ronin, and I'm a little iffy on that. You know, I'm sure that, you know, when it comes to Assassin's Creed, you can always expect that AAA quality, you know, kind of like that fine detail that they'll put on it. So I think that that'll be the difference. Of course, hopefully having a great story will definitely go a long way, as well as the open world that it will be. It'll be a very interesting conversation once we get a little bit more information on it. But I'm sure that it'll possibly, I mean, nothing is 100%. So for those guys that have been looking forward to this setting and Assassin's Creed taking place in this time period, hopefully they'll be able to toe the mark. Let's go ahead and let's move into the next story. So, oh, and by the way, I got that first story from Variety, but let's get into the second story, which I actually got this story from Gaming Bible. So in Insomniac news, Insomniac Spider-Man news, man, I'm all tongue-tied. Let me get it together. All right, here we go. Insomniac sent out a tweet that says, quote, "Our next update is coming March 7th. Our title update for Marvel's hashtag Spider-Man 2 PS5 arrives next month and adds highly requested features like new game plus, new suits, and more. Watch our social media for a complete list of features closer to release. Hashtag be greater together." End of quote. So this is fantastic news. I know that fans have been very interested in a new game plus coming to Spider-Man 2. So just the fact that look out for March 7th, that's when it's going to release, as well as actually dropping new suits. And they said more, quote, more. I wonder what the more could be. I know that there are multiple DLCs that are supposed to come out at one point in time, at least according to the leaks. We're supposed to be getting a Venom DLC, which I'm sure that's a ways off. I wouldn't expect that to come this year because they just finished up on Spider-Man 2 last year. So you got to give them at least a year and some change to possibly work out the kinks of that. But I'm sure that they'll be giving us something in the near future, because according to them, their words, not mine, watch their social media for a complete list of features closer to release. So, yeah, keep your eyes peeled and get ready for March 7th to have the new Game Plus mode and some new suits when it comes to Spider-Man 2. Let's get into the next story. So this next story, I got it from Comic Book. So let's put our sights on what's going on over at Sega. So it looks like we have at least a possible release window for the new Jet Set Radio that was shown at the Game Awards and some new info on the game itself. Now, this information is coming from Twitter user at MBKKSSTBHZ5, who seems to be a reliable leaker, according to the comic book website, who says Jet Set Radio will be a reboot of the series, not a remake of the Dreamcast title, which I have to say that is excellent. I like to hear that. I love it. I absolutely love it. We've had enough reboots. Let's do something different. So this is fantastic. It is a reboot, not a remake. So let me continue on. It says, it will be a reboot of the series, not a remake of the Dreamcast title. The other part to this story, which is unfortunate, is the game won't be releasing until 2026. Now, it's also being rumored that the game will be releasing on the quote Switch 2, end of quote. Now, the game will also, quote, feature a new story with new and old characters. Now, I gotta say, for me personally, again, I applaud this. This is fantastic. I don't think anybody wanted a remake or a remaster of the original Jet Set Radio that came out on the Dreamcast. Yes, it was a fantastic game when it came out. Very original. Matter of fact, it was probably, as far as I can remember, the first game that had that art style to it. That's escaping me at the moment. The cell shaded art style. I had never seen a game come out that looked like that. That was like the closest thing at the time to me looking at an anime. So just the aesthetic of the game was amazing. And then the premise of the game, it might have been a little simple. You know, you tag in different buildings, but it was just the gameplay, the story. I mean, as small as it was, but the story to it as well. And just, you know, it came out in a time when it was just nothing like that on the market. So it was absolutely amazing at that time. But I do love the fact, again, that they are rebooting the series and not just trying to live off of the Dreamcast's title and just putting a remake out there. So I'm interested to see what kind of new gameplay mechanics they're going to add to the game, what new characters they're going to add, what are the enemies going to be this time. We know it was a cop in the first game. The second game, I get a little fuzzy on the second one, and I still have the original Xbox copy of that. I believe it came with, Sega Rally Racing, I believe at that time. So it was kind of like a twofer. And, I loved it though. I really enjoyed the game. Didn't beat it. Didn't even get too far into it. So how can I say I loved it? I might have just capped there a little bit. But, from what I did play, I did have a good time, but it was just short lived. So, as far as this goes, I am very interested to see the direction they go in, to see how they update the gameplay to this. Graphically, it already looks really, really good. It looks very promising. So, I mean, I'd be very curious if they'll bring back, what was his name? DJ Professor K or X? I can't quite remember. My memory is shot. Y'all know I have a terrible memory, but we'll see what happens with this in the near future. And also it coming to Switch 2. Man, very, very interesting. Could that mean that the Switch is going to be a little No, it's not. It ain't going to be that powerful. I ain't even going to go down that road. Let's go ahead and move on in to the next story, which I actually got from VGC. And pardon my voice. I don't know why it's cracking up on y'all. I probably need some water. Matter of fact, hold on. I think I will take a sip. Hold on for a second. Oh man, this is unprofessional production, seem like every single episode. But we're gonna get through it though. So let's get into this next story. Speaking of older titles, like Jet Set Radio, according to Gamatsu, they have spotted that Grim Fandango, Day of the Tentacle, and Full Throttle have all been rated for Sony's PS5 console in Taiwan, seemingly ahead of any official announcement. Now, one interesting game fact is Tim Schafer's first game as a solo project lead was Full Throttle back in 1995. And I played Full Throttle when it first released. That was during my PC days, when I was very, very much so into PC, playing Police Quest 4, playing King's Quest, Myst back then, and a couple of other titles as well. But it was just so amazing. Wing Commander back then, having games actually speak was absolutely astounding at the time. You had to go out and get a Sound Blaster, sound card, all of that stuff. See, that was when I became jaded too, when it came to PC. It was fun for the time being, but when you needed a newer PC with more, at that time, it was megabytes of RAM and a better processor, that's when I was like, man, I can't even go out here and freely get any game that's on PC because I can't run it. So that was a bit of the turning point for me. And then when PlayStation came out and some games were talking, games actually started having voice actors, I was like, oh man, I ain't never going back to PC. Why should I? So it was just a moment in time, but I do remember Full Throttle. I never played Grim Fandango and never played Day of the Tentacle, which I think was a sequel to Maniac Mansion back then. Those didn't really appeal to me, but that Full Throttle with the main character, his name was Ben. I can't remember his last name, but Ben was a dope character. It was so cinematic too. It was just amazing to look at. Absolutely incredible game. Now, will I be picking any of these up? I don't know about that. I'm gonna be honest with you. If I was to get one, it would, of course, be Full Throttle, even though I hear good things about Grim Fandango. Heard it was a pretty good game. Would I be getting it? No, probably not. Probably not. Not really my thing. But seeing that what is interesting about this, too, is, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't Microsoft own all of these titles? Don't they own them? If I'm not mistaken, how did these get leaked for the PlayStation 5 before they got leaked for the Xbox Series X or S? I don't know. Even PC. Well, PC doesn't really do remakes. They, anytime they get a higher graphics card, I guess is a remake. But this is very interesting news. Were any of you guys fans of these back in the day? I'm just curious to know. Like I said, Full Throttle, that was my game. I really enjoyed it. Thought it was great for the time being. I don't know how to point and click gameplay would kind of resonate today in gaming. The closest thing that I guess we have to that would be like the Telltale games. And of course the last Telltale game, man, that's a tongue twister. Telltale game that came out, God darn it, let me get it together here, was The Expanse, if I'm not mistaken, which I heard was good. I planned on getting it, haven't really had a chance. I'm just so into Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart right now, which that game got, dog, Pixar movie levels of graphics, Pixar level. But I digress. Anyway, we'll see what happens with this. We'll see if it ends up being true or not. And who knows? Wouldn't it be kind of cool though? I think it would be kind of dope if this was a 3-pack. Now, if you got a 3-for-1, I don't know. I might would pick that up just to have it. Possibly, but we'll see what happens with this in the near future. Let's go ahead and move on into the next story, which I got from Insider Gaming. So there were multiple reports. Oh, this topic right here. This broke the internet over the last week and a half or so. So there were multiple reports that Starfield is in fact coming to PlayStation 5, and one of the people that were in front, he was on the front line. He was on the front line of this rumor being true, was insider Nate the Hate, who said, quote, "This report is accurate," end of quote. Well, how time can change somebody's mind. So now it appears that there has been an update to this story, according to the man himself, Nate the Hate, who wrote in a tweet, quote, "Over the course of the week, I've rechecked the info mentioned below, and the information suggesting Starfield was PS5 bound is false. I will not delete the tweet. I'll own the mistake. A previous report from January discussing Microsoft bringing games multi-plat remains accurate." So this right here, brothers and sisters that are here right now, this is very interesting and promising. This is very promising if it ends up being true, because when you start releasing your AAA games like Starfield, that is a new IP, onto the rival console, man, you may as well get out of the console business. Because once you start there, what's going to go next? What's going to happen next? And I'm still in that boat. But it is at least great to hear that, at least at this moment in time, because we know Phil Spencer, he's going to come out there, or whoever, Satya Nadella, Sarah Bond, whoever's going to take the stage is going to explain in deeper detail what the future of Xbox is going to be at that point in time. But for today, for right now, this is great news that, at least according to rumors from Nate the Hate, that he got it wrong, that Starfield is coming to PS5. Hopefully that remains true, and that they will keep that as an exclusive, because Microsoft needs it. They need it badly. I read a report that came out from Rockstar, or you could say 2K. Who is it? Not 2K. Y'all know who I'm talking about. The parent company, Take-Two, that said that they have the data where, and this is not really that bad, to be honest. They're saying that the numbers are 2-1. PlayStation 5 is outselling Xbox Series X 2-1. Now, granted, I didn't look into what territory that is. I'm taking it has to be here in the States, because we've heard overseas, man, the numbers are abysmal. So I will say, being outsold 2-1, that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was on record saying I thought it was going to be 3-1. It was going to be worse than what it was last generation. And according again to Take-Two, it doesn't look like the numbers are that bad. So they still have a chance. Microsoft or Xbox still has a chance to stay in the fight, but they need to keep games like this exclusive to their platform. So we will see what happens next week, and we'll pick it up from there. But let's move into the next story, which actually comes to us from Final Weapon. This is the first time I went to this website. So if you are a Virtua Fighter fan, then there may be some possible great news coming down the pipe, according to Atlas insider Midori at MBKKSSTBHZ who said, who has a solid. Now, when they say they got these solid track records, I don't know these guys. I don't know if it's true or not. But according to the Final Weapon website, they're saying this guy actually it's a her. That she has a pretty solid track record when it comes to the Persona franchise. And she was asked, man, God dog. Now, you know what? That just God dog, that puts a hole in this whole thing already. I didn't pick up on that small detail, but we gonna roll with it right now. It's too late. I'm committed to the story. So it says, a Twitter user named, Zeresit, is spelled Zeresit, Zeresit, said, quote, any about Virtual Fighter. I guess he meant to say anything about Virtual Fighter, but he said any about Virtual Fighter, end of quote, where she responded by saying, quote, a Virtual Fighter reboot is in development, end of quote. Now, listen, I'm not out here trying to take away any Virtual Fighter fans' dreams of having a new Virtual Fighter. But we know that, man, sometimes that's why I say take this stuff with a mustard seed of truth that this stuff is real. Because anybody can go out there. I mean, again, they said that her stronghold on insider information is based off a doggone Persona. And Virtual Fighter, last time I checked, it has nothing to do with Persona. So this is where I get a little iffy on this. But I will say, it would make sense for them to actually do this because it's been an amazing fighting genre, time to be in. I mean, we had the new Mortal Kombat come out last year, the new Street Fighter come out last year. This year, you got the new Tekken that released. So it's a really good environment, a great climate to actually release some fighting games. So if this is true, this would be a good time to release one. I'm sure there are many fans that would be very excited to see the return of a new Virtual Fighter. Me, I hadn't been into Virtual Fighter since the Dreamcast days. And oh man, it was so beautiful though. Man, Virtual Fighter, I was more of a fan of Virtual Fighter back in the 90s than I was. I was about to lie to y'all. God, dog, I was just about to lie. I was about to say I was more of a fan of Virtual Fighter than Tekken. That wasn't true. I was a fan of Virtual Fighter until Tekken actually released, which was much more tighter. Virtual Fighter always felt kind of how can I say it? Kind of like airy. It didn't feel grounded. Like when you jumped in the air, it felt like it took 50 seconds to jump up and come back down. It just seemed too floaty. The combat, it just didn't really, the gameplay just wasn't there for me, but Tekken was way more tighter. I loved the varying characters, the graphics, everything was just so much better. I mean, Tekken had a bit of a story going on to it. Virtual Fighter, not so much, so, and of course I know Virtual Fighter has changed over the years, but I haven't kept up with it either. I haven't. So, I'm not too sure what they're doing with Virtual Fighter right now, but hopefully for the fans that want to see this franchise return, hopefully this is a good sign and true that it will. But until Sega comes out and says it, let's just take this story with a mustard seed of truth. Let's go ahead and let's get into the next story, which I actually got from Tom's Guide. So, man, I'm going to let y'all in on a little bit of inside baseball. Sometimes I write these stories and they seem really good at the time, but then when I start talking to y'all, I start saying, I don't know, maybe that could have been a waste of time, but we're going to talk about it though. All right, here we go. So, I mean, I know where we're going into, this is just going into year 4 with this current generation of consoles. So, I mean, it may be a little too early to discuss next gen hardware, but we have been getting some rumblings about what next gen hardware, at least for the PS6, will entail. Now, according to YouTuber Moore's Law is Dead, who tends to be a reliable tipster. Oh, man. God, dog. I keep on going with these tipsters and insiders and whatnot, but that's all we got right now. So he seems to be a good tipster. And he's actually, I mean, this gives him a little bit of validity to a certain degree because he did leak the details about the still rumored, to be fair, PS5 Pro. He has broken down a few claims when it comes to the next PlayStation. So according to Moore's Law, he's claiming to know with, quote, 100%, end of quote, certainty that Sony will continue its partnership with AMD to power the PS6 and PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, the chip will boast an alleged, and this is for it to be clear, perfectly clear, he's talking about the PlayStation 6 when it comes to this chip. So the chip will boast an alleged 4K at 120 frames per second and 8K at 60 frames per second gaming experience. Now, when I heard this, brothers and sisters, I said, God doggone, pump the dirt brakes, pump them. 4K at 120 frames per second. I don't even know if some PCs are able to do that. I mean, of course, man, you guys come out here, school me, tell me something. Y'all know my PC knowledge is extremely limited, but can you do this thus far on PC? And if so, what kind of graphics card are you using? It's gotta be a 4080 or a 4090. It's gotta be with 100 gigabytes of RAM in that thing. Somebody tell me about this. Do you think this is possible? 4K at 120 frames per second. And if you want to go for that more graphical, more, not performance based, but graphics based, experience, you'll be able to get 8K at 60 frames per second. God, dog. That really does seem a little too good to be true, but we're going to continue on. Says this rumor is also getting a little more credibility added to it by Red Gaming Tech, who claims Sony was never considering any other vendors other than AMD to power its next gen hardware for several reasons, including ease of backwards compatibility and an already dedicated custom solutions team. Man, now this is interesting as well, because the last report we got, contrary to Sony, we've heard that Microsoft, their next gen console, they were not 100% locked in with AMD. They're still kind of on the market looking for another manufacturer, as it were. And they weren't 100% dedicated to AMD for the next Xbox. But at this point in time, Xbox is just all over the place right now until Phil Spencer or whatever Xbox or Microsoft representation comes out next week to tell us exactly what the future of Xbox is going to be. We really just got to kind of put a real pause on next generation hardware when it comes to them. But if things are starting to go into a certain direction where maybe they don't want to put as much money into the hardware, then maybe it does make sense that they would go with someone else, for a cheaper price. But then you got to wonder, what does that do for your library? Will your library carry over and be backwards compatible with something outside of AMD? So it could definitely lead into a lot of different problems with the logistics of how you'll carry over your library and things of that nature if Xbox doesn't go with AMD, but we'll see what happens with that when it happens. But the thing about this is, when you're talking about this kind of power with the PlayStation 6, man, 4K, 120 frames per second, how much is this thing gonna cost? That's my first question. How much is this mother lover gonna cost? Cause I'm telling you, this seems incredible. PS6, 4K, and even 8K. Man, I just got a 4K TV. To be fair, I just got one. The Samsung upstairs. It's amazing though. I will say that 4K is, sir. That thing hits a little different when you get a game up there that is 4K compatible. And I know some of y'all say it's fake 4K. It's not really 4K. I don't care. I can't tell too much. You know, if it's fake or if it's real, that joker looks good on TV. When I was playing Ratchet and Clank, man, I'm telling you, man, those colors were so vibrant. They were just popping off of the screen. It was just incredible to look at. I absolutely loved it. So for me, man, 4K is fantastic. I can't imagine what 8K is going to be. Or is it going to be one of these situations where 8K is going to be on the box and it really is not doing 8K? We'll have to see. Like I said, I kind of felt like I was jumping the gun with this one a little bit, but you know, I'm always interested in knowing, at least getting an idea. Of course, this stuff may not be true. Take it with a mustard seed of truth because it is a rumor thus far, but I'm always interested in seeing at least what possibly could be happening with the next gen consoles that'll be coming out soon. And this one, I'm sure that the next PlayStation, the PS6, probably won't be releasing for another 3 or so years, probably somewhere around 2027, you know. So what we can do though, to figure out the validity of this guy, Moore's Law, to see if he's really accurate with this information, or at least give him a bit of a slight pass, you know, on what he's saying is, if this PlayStation 5 Pro is true and the specs end up being at least semi-close to what he was talking about, then maybe we can say that he may have something. But until then, again, just take this with a mustard seed of truth. Let's go ahead and let's get into the next story, which I got from VGC, or Video Game Chronicles. So speaking on the future of next gen gaming, we do know that during the course of the week, Xbox fans have been left wondering what the future of Xbox will be. Well, it's being reported that Microsoft's gaming division had an internal town hall meeting to address certain things, like them bringing first-party titles to other platforms. Man, you know, this is serious. God, dog, these jokers called the in-house town hall meeting. I'm telling you, last week, I know Xbox was on fire, not in a good way. These jokers were trying to come up with something. I'm sure it was panic happening inside of Xbox, because you know what's interesting about this too. Just taking a bit of a detour just for a second, but it will link up. I'm sure that people in Xbox were, well, okay, I won't take a detour yet because I actually have to finish the rest of the story before I get there. So, it's being reported that Microsoft's gaming division, had the internal town hall meeting to address certain things, like them bringing first party titles to other. I read that already. All right. So according to journalist Shannon Liao, it's spelled Liao, Microsoft head of gaming Phil Spencer told employees that Xbox currently has no plans to stop making consoles, and that Xbox consoles will continue to be part of its strategy, which involves, quote, multiple kinds of devices, end of quote. So what I was going to say is, I'm sure that inside of Xbox, there had to be a million different questions, because we've heard over the years that some people found out that they were losing their jobs over social media. It's happened several times with several different studios where they're like, dag, I didn't know I was being let go. You know, it's been reports out there that have said that that's how they found out. So I'm sure that inside of Xbox, they possibly could have been thinking the same thing. Wait a minute. Are y'all still making consoles? Are we still in the console business? Are the games going third party? Where does that leave us? So I can understand the panic and the very much so concern that these guys must have had. So again, according to the journalist named Miss Shannon, or it could be Mr. Shannon, I'm not sure, Laeo, Phil Spencer told the employees that Xbox currently has no plans to stop making consoles. Now, this is the thing about Phil. God, dog, let me put this down. Phil Spencer, I want to believe this guy, but I can't. I can't. Every time Phil Spencer says something, I'm always wondering, when are you going to retract on it? Is it true? Is it real? We got to remember, this is the brother that said, I'm more excited about the games we didn't show. Oh my gosh. And where were the games, Phil? That was several years ago. I mean, this guy's talking about making up for Street Fighter. I'm not going to go down the list here and there and there and there and here, but we know what Phil Spencer has said. He just said that games will only appear on devices or consoles that have GamePass. In so many words. I mean, he didn't say that verbatim, but he said that wherever GamePass is, their games will be. And of course, we gotta wait till next week to see if it is true officially. But if it's not true, that's another lie that was told to the, not just the Xbox community, but the gaming community. So when I hear Phil Spencer talk about there's still going to be an Xbox console business, I'm sitting here with a big question mark. Like, I don't know if this is true or not. I have no idea. With anything like this, the first thing you want to do is you want to calm the fires down. You want to start patting them jokers out, telling people whatever they need to hear just to calm down the situation, calm down the room, as it were. Anytime you having an internal town hall meeting, God, dog, you know it's serious. Oh, man. We're going to see what happens with this. I'm hoping it's true, because I don't want Xbox to go away. We need them. We need them. Some people are saying that Xbox doesn't really make a difference. They haven't been competition for Sony in years. I mean, years upon years. Sony has been carrying it on their back. And I would say, you know what, brother? To a certain degree, yes, you are very, very right. When it comes to games, when it comes to the quality of games, yeah, Xbox, they have not been able to reach that upper level where mind, body, and soul must be one. God dog. Did y'all see The Last Dragon? Shout out to Z, man. Every time I think about that movie, I always think about that good brother. Shout out to him, man. But I'm just saying that games have not been on the same level as PlayStation's for years. But I still believe that they keep Sony at least in check. They keep them trying. I know they're outselling them 2-1, but as long as that threat is around, because you never know when Xbox might be able to strike, and all of a sudden it's a different conversation. So I never want to see Microsoft go away. Well, the Xbox brand go away. I never want to see Nintendo go away because they all bring something different to the table. So for anybody that wants to see any of them go away, I can't get behind that because I'm thinking of the gaming landscape. I mean, you get rid of I keep saying Microsoft because they're under the Microsoft banner, but you get rid of Xbox. I can't not imagine that Sony is not going to capitalize on that. They are going to run with that, and they're going to run with it hard. I understand that Nintendo is in the space as well, but I mean, come on, man. Nintendo, they aren't pushing the boundaries of the games that they make. We on Mario 197 right now. Even though granted though, I mean, I will say, I ain't going to talk too greasy about them. I mean, that Mario Odyssey was dope. I got to give them that. That was pretty awesome. But I'm just saying that they're not keeping up with the technology that Sony is pushing forward. They're pushing gaming forward. And the closest thing that we have to that is Microsoft. So for the sake of gaming, for the gaming community, for the sake of gaming competition, I'm hoping that they stay around and that this report that Phil Spencer said to, the fellow employees at this, internal town hall meeting is true, that Microsoft is staying, or Xbox, pardon me, golly, that Xbox is staying in the console race. So we will see next week, but let's move on into the next story. And this next story, I actually got it from Twisted Voxel. So, this story. All right. I gotta say this, man. I mean, and I've said it a million times. Death Stranding was not at all my type of game. But I gotta say this, man. Hideo Kojima gave some very interesting details about the upcoming sequel, Death Stranding 2, on his Hideo Tube, which is his official Kojima Productions YouTube channel, where he says, I mean, before I even get into this, Death Stranding, I tried it at first. Oh man, it started out so good. Graphically, it looked great. Gameplay was pretty good at first, but as I got into that story, and the story, I will say, the story started out really, really good. That first mission that they put me on, I was like, whoa, Kojima might actually have something here. This is this is kind of compelling to a certain degree. I can get invested in this. And then I started on my journey, and I could not figure out the map layout. To save my doggone life, I couldn't figure it out. I'm getting all these packages. I'm starting to go through the water. The packages are washing away. I'm trying to fire on something, brothers. I'm trying to see some action. I was going through this world. It was hardly anything going on outside of me and them darn packages on my back. So again, I was not at all a fan of Death Stranding, but I gotta say, when he talked on his Kojima Productions YouTube channel, where he says that this is some of the things that he actually talked about. He says that the State of Play Death Stranding 2 trailer was captured on PS5, and he believes that the game's graphics will improve even further by launch. I sat there and I looked, man, let me tell you something. Oh man, when I saw that trailer, I said, ain't no way. The first thing I thought of, I'm like, I don't know. I think it could be PS5, because the PS5 is a beast, man. It really is. That God of War, Ragnarok, Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man Miles Morales. I haven't seen a bad looking game on that console yet. And I've beat several games and they have been excellent. So I'm sitting there and I'm saying, man, this is probably possible on the console, but it's always that small doubt, you know, at least for me in my mind that, man, maybe this could be running possibly on PC. So when he said that trailer was captured on PS5 and that the graphics will improve even further by launch, I'm like, God darn. I mean, y'all know I'm very, very shallow. Call me the shallow Hal, brother of gaming. First thing I'm looking at is graphics, man. The first thing, Crimson Phoenix asked me about this. What gets you excited about a game? I said graphics first, brother. I mean, so if you can sell me on the graphics, you got my attention. Now you gotta sell me on the rest of the stuff. But when I saw those graphics in this game, I said, God, dog. And I know that the scene that they concentrated on, I know that was more of a cinematic scene. I get that, but it was some gameplay shown in between, which was, very, very good looking. But let's move into what else he also mentioned, because he didn't just mention that the graphics would improve further by launch, but he also mentioned that the game's assets are now ready and the development team just needs to construct. So it looks like that they're ready to get in there and finally get this thing to the finish line, which is very, very good for them. Now, he also shared some gameplay and features where he mentioned that Sam can now remove his backpack for lighter movement and combat. That's what I'm talking about, Kojima. Give me some combat, bro. Let me get an AR-15 or something, man, so I can go out there and start firing on these enemies. Because the thing is, that was the thing that I had a problem with. I can tell y'all exactly where I stopped in Death Stranding. I was fighting the first boss. It was this black looking blob. It was this blob of looked like black ink. And this thing was morphing into some kind of monster. I couldn't beat that thing. I didn't even have a weapon. He ain't even give me a knife, nothing. So I'm trying to punch this thing and trying to run away. Man, I ain't have a chance. Once I got to that point, I said, man, I can't do this. I just can't. I can't do it. So if it's going to be more combat in this game, and somebody, please, if any of you guys have played Death Stranding, excuse me, if you guys have played Death Stranding, tell me if it is some combat in this game. And if it is, how many hours do you have to play to finally get to that point in the game? Because if it had combat in between with me taking the packages around, that could have changed the whole dynamic for a brother. But let me move on into some more of the things he said. He said the game will feature lots of vehicles and real-time terrain deformation, which is good, with roads that can be cut off via earthquakes, forest fires, and floods, etc. Now that is interesting. I mean, as I was writing this stuff down, I was like, man, are you gonna, actually find yourself in the middle of an earthquake actually happening while you're going through the terrain, or a forest fire is going to break out, or a flood is going to happen? And if it does happen, does it happen just randomly? That just sounds so interesting. And then what kind of way will you go once that happens? Like on the detour, which way will you have to go? Will it take you longer to get to your destination? Will it be harder? How many different enemies are you going to have to go through? Are your packages going to be more at risk? I mean, it just adds a different element to the game when you add things like that into it. So I was like, man, this just sounds really interesting. He might be able to sell me on this. I don't know, man. It sounds good. It definitely sounds really good. And just interesting. That's the only thing I can say. But the setting is, he actually went into that. He said the setting is set on a continent outside of America, but he didn't really get into which continent that would be, but it is outside of the States, outside of America. He also talked a little about the puppet, where he said the model for the puppet is Faith Aiken, which is a German director. He says you'll travel with him by your side and can converse with him on deliveries. Why he ended up this way is something players will learn during the story. Now I'm gonna tell you what I saw a little puppet dude, man. I said, this is just outlandish. This is just so Kojima. I mean, he had that, man, the thing about that puppet, brothers and sisters, he had that Rankin Bass animation going on. That animation, what did you call it? I forget the name of the animation. I think it was still animation. I'm talking about those back in the day cartoons that were, had Rudolph, what was it? Heat Miser, those different cartoons that would come on during the holidays. That Rankin Bass animation was serious with that puppet. I said, God, those jokers moving at 4 frames a second. This is absolutely insane. So I definitely want to know if I do choose, I ain't saying I'm buying it. I ain't going to go that far. But if I do choose to get this game, I definitely want to know what the heck is how did you get like this, man? What happened? Is this a curse? Did they put a spell on you? What happened? So I'm very, very interested in knowing just a little bit more about Death Stranding 2. And I'm telling you, reading this, and I'm almost halfway ashamed to say this, but reading the details about this new game, Death Stranding 2, which will be coming out, I believe, next year, if I'm not mistaken, it's really got me at least bare minimum contemplating on going back to doggone Death Stranding.
Move this man!
Man, I'm terrible, man. God, dog. I've tore this man's game down. The first one, it wasn't for me. It was terrible. It was boring. It was just no fun. And hearing him talking about Death Stranding 2, I'm sitting here really contemplating on doggone booting up, man. Nah, I can't boot up the PlayStation 4. I can't do it. I know he has this on PlayStation 5, Death Stranding, and I believe he added some extra things to it. If I get it, God darn. I'm really contemplating on buying this game again, just to see if maybe I needed to stick with it sometime. I mean, golly, somebody out there that has played Death Stranding, and I mean really has played it, let me know if my feelings were correct after I was about 2 or so hours in, or does it actually really get better? Does the story become better? Is the character development there? There's some combat in this joint. Somebody let me know something. But again, I'm really contemplating on buying this on the PS5. I can't believe myself. Oh, I can't believe me. But there's no way I can go back to the PlayStation 4. I can't. After the loading times of the PlayStation 5, it's no darn way. I refuse to go back to any PlayStation 4 games. I'm going to tell you that those load times are incredible. And I'm sure on the Xbox Series X, they're incredible as well. It is so hard to go back, man, when games are almost instantly booting up. I mean, just that alone, it was worth the upgrade. Phenomenal. But we're going to go ahead. We're going to move on because it looks like I'm not going to be able to get y'all out of here in an hour like I like to, but we're going to move on into the next story. So I got this next story from Gamer Rant. So in more Ubisoft news, is this the last story? Nah, this ain't the last story. Okay. In more Ubisoft news, though, two new Far Cry projects are reportedly in development. Codenamed Project Blackbird and Project Maverick. Actually, this is the final story. Okay, so the leaks claim one focuses on multiplayer and the other is single player. Now, Project Maverick is described as an extraction-based shooter set in the Alaskan wilderness with survival mechanics. Now, Project Blackbird is rumored to be the next mainline installment featuring a non-linear story about rescuing the player's character's family from a cult, which seems like they're kind of going back to, what was that? Far Cry 5, I believe that was the premise of that game. People were in a cult and you were teaming up with people that were against it. Well, anyway, this one, you're going to have to save your family from a cult. So this report is coming from, again, Tom Henderson. Shout out to him. So the name of the cult is the, quote, Sons of Truth, end of quote. And it seems like the game is going in a bit of a new direction for the Far Cry franchise. So Far Cry 7 will feature an in-game timer that tasks players with rescuing all of their kidnapped family members within 24 real life hours. That is very interesting. You literally, according to this report by Tom Henderson, Far Cry 7, you're going to have to save your family. Well, the character's family, within 24 real life hours. That means you at least that you're going in getting 24 hours of gameplay or slightly less. I've never seen that before. But players will apparently be able to rescue their family in any order, with the game's story being non-linear. I'm running into a lot of tongue twisters tonight. But being non-linear. God damn, let me sit this down for a minute. All right, man, I'm going to get it together. God dog, last story. Come on, Kiaun. Here we go. All right. It's going to be non-linear. And failing to rescue certain family members will also have a major impact on the story. And players will have to use a new interrogation mechanic to determine where their family is being held. Now, the game is also supposed to be using Ubisoft's Snowdrop engine, which is the same engine behind Star Wars Outlaws, which that game looks amazing. Now, the game is currently targeting a fall 2025 release date. I'm very interested in this, only because if that mechanic is true, if the real life 24 hours to actually find your family, that replayability has got to be crazy. Because I'm sure that on your first go round, you're not going to be able to rescue everybody on the first run, which means that replay value could really be something like how many different endings or combinations of endings could you get, actually, saving this family member, but not saving the other one. Like if it's a husband and wife, what happens if you save the wife, but not the husband? How does that impact the character, like I say, the husband? How does that impact him? How does that impact him towards you, towards the player? Or, your sister, aunt, grandmother. I mean, this is interesting. Like I said, I don't think I've ever played a game where you literally had a internal clock inside of a game that is counting down the 24 hours in real time to actually do something, to actually complete certain missions. And I wonder, what happens if you don't save anybody in that 24-hour period? What is that outcome? I mean, so them trying something different, I gotta give them some respect for that. This is a really interesting idea. Again, I can't recall a game actually having this kind of mechanic in it, where you literally have to do this in real time in order to beat the game or, make certain things happen. Usually we just have a unlimited amount of time to actually complete a full game. Maybe certain tasks in games are timed, but to actually complete a full game in a certain amount of time, I've never seen that before. So I'd be interested if any of you guys have seen a game that has done this, or if this is the first time that you guys are hearing anything like this. But anyway, that is the end of the gaming news this week, which leads us into Video Game Theater. And in this week's Video Game Theater, we're going to take a look back at September 16th, 2008, at a fantastic game, at least in my opinion, which is Star Wars Force Unleashed, where we will take a look back at the betrayal, or should I say Darth Vader's betrayal of Starkiller. So we will return with the final section of the podcast after Video Game Theater. Stay tuned, guys.
The Emperor's fleet has arrived.
You have lured the Emperor to us. When do we strike?
I did not summon him. His spies followed you here. What is thy bidding, my master?
You have forgotten your place, Lord Vader. By taking this boy as your apprentice, you have betrayed me. Now you will kill him, or I will destroy you both.
Master, we can defeat him together.
Do it now, Lord Vader. Strike him down and prove your loyalty to me.
Yes, kill him!
Lord Vader, he's regaining consciousness.
Keep him restrained.
Yes, sir.
You killed me!
No. The Emperor...
Man, Star Wars Force Unleashed. Darn, I love that game. That was absolutely one of my favorites. I think that used the Euphoria engine because the physics, when you were using those force powers and you were throwing the stormtroopers all over the place, it looked like a real ragdoll. The physics were remarkable in that game. So that was just one of my favorites. But guys, let's get into the final section of the podcast. And of course, I know you guys saw the question early on, but let's officially go over it. So the question of the week is, without day and date, will you keep your Game Pass subscription? Now, I only bring this up because this was pointed out by Zubitech on Twitter, where he said, quote, Microsoft removes Xbox Series and Xbox Game Pass logos from its site. And then he shows examples of this on the website, on Xbox's official website with Avowed. This is what he had put up as an example. We showed this with Avowed. He said, where at first, well, this is what I'm saying. It was advertised as, quote, Avowed Game Pass day one to Game Pass Series XS console PC. Now today it's advertised as, quote, Game Pass Avowed, end of quote. It gives a description of the game and then says, quote, console PC cloud, end of quote. There is no mention of Xbox Series X and S, and more importantly, no day one in Game Pass mentioned. He had another example. Let's go to Fable. Now, early on, same thing, coming day one to Xbox Game Pass. Today, no mention of day and date, but it does mention Game Pass. Now, the thing is, I do want to point out, because, you know, if you're going to tell a story, tell the whole thing. Now, when it comes to Hellblade 2, the game is being advertised as, quote, included with Game Pass, end of quote, which is good, but it does not say day and date when you click on the game for more details. So I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, you know, is this going to be a truly rebranding of Game Pass, where these games are not going to be available day and date on the service? We already see that they are not saying that on the website. So my question is, if they take this away, will you stay subscribed to Game Pass, or will you let it go? Because who's to say? Maybe these games will be available in 6 months on Game Pass. Now, maybe also we might just be looking into it just a little too deep, and maybe it's not that heavy. But until we know something for sure, the website is what the website is. So we can only go off of what they are saying. Why did they take the day and date away from these 3 new games that are appearing? What was it? This year. I was trying to think of the date of Hellblade 2. I think that's sometime in April, I believe, or May. I can't quite remember. But why would they all of a sudden take that branding away now that it seems like they are actually rebranding what Game Pass is? Now, the thing was, when I went on the website, I had heard word that they were rebranding it Microsoft's or Microsoft Game Pass. I didn't see that on the website, so I don't know about that. It's still saying Game Pass as far as I've seen, but the reports of them not having that branding of day and date with Game Pass on these games, that is true. That is missing. So that makes me wonder, what is going to happen? Me, I'm going to tell y'all, I am elated that this is happening. I'm extremely happy that this is happening. And you might be saying, you are out of your darn mind, Kiaun. How are you happy about this? I'm going to tell you why. Because Game Pass, to me, has been a bit of a hindrance when it comes to, in my opinion, Microsoft being able to go all in on these different games, these newer games that are releasing. Because in my mind, I understand Phil Spencer, he said Game Pass is, it is profitable, but I'm guessing that it can only be profitable if you have a certain number of subscribers. I believe the magic number that they needed to get to make sure that the service would be profitable was around like 50 million. The last time they said anything about it, they weren't even at 30 million. So they're extremely short on the player base or the player count that they need in order to be profitable. And if you're not profitable with a service, what happens? That service starts to go downhill more and more. Their first party games would be affected and not be those AAA games that we would love for them to be. So with them actually possibly doing this model of having their games actually have to be sold, you got to sell them and people have to buy them, then I think they make out way better. The quality of the games will be much better. I think that the output of the games would be much better because now you're going to be able to get full price up front. And then later on down the line, 6 months, a year later, you'll be able to actually put those into the service. I don't think this is a bad thing. I think that this also could help keep Xbox around because they would be seeing the money. I mean, it was already a rumor out there that seems pretty doggone accurate when you think about where Game Pass is right now with this title, where they were saying that Call of Duty wouldn't be coming day and date to Game Pass. And why would it? It is a doggone seller. Thing makes millions upon millions of dollars a year. Why would you give that away in the service? Why? I understand it may do something for your numbers. It could. But we got to remember, Xbox is not a popular brand. It's not nearly as popular as the other two. That's just the fact of the matter. So you got to play to your strengths. And what I was going to say as far as that Call of Duty situation goes is we haven't seen or heard anything, no updates about when Call of Duties will be coming. We are in February. I know that is still extremely early in the year, but it has been absolutely zero talk about anything Call of Duty related, even when it comes to older titles being put into the Game Pass service. So I just have a feeling that this is the new direction that they're going in, and I'm sure it will possibly make a lot of people not want to subscribe, but that just means that the games that they sell, they'll be able to get full price for, which is a good thing. I know some people are like, man, I like a deal. You will never find anybody as cheap as me. I guarantee you that. I am extremely cheap. But I also understand that in order to keep gaming going, to keep this hobby going, you gotta support the developers. You gotta support the publishers. It's just something that you have to do. Now, granted, well, you don't have to do anything, but granted, if you want to see your specific game or that team be around, you gotta, well, development team, I should say, be around. You gotta show support. So I'm all for this. I think it's going to do nothing but improve the quality of the games that comes out, and that they'll be able to really get Xbox back to where it needs to be, to actually really compete against Sony. I really believe this will be for the best, but we'll see if this is true or not. But the question does remain. Again, I'll ask it one more time. Without day and date, will you keep your Game Pass subscription? I would love to hear from you guys and tell me why I'm wrong for me wanting them to sell these games full price. Please let me know something. And as always, if you want to be a part of the conversation, you can do it two different ways. I know y'all probably got some words for me. But you can do it two different ways. You can either call in and let your voice be heard at 443-380-0281, or you can email the show, and the email address is simply theanalogcirclepodcast@gmail.com. I was your host, Kiaun Mitchell, and I want to say thank you again for being here. It is truly appreciated. You know what I want to do? I want to look right now just to see what the score is on the Super Bowl right now. Let me turn this up. See. What is the score in the Super Bowl?
In Super Bowl 58, the 49ers are currently tied with the Chiefs 16-16, with about 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Oh, buddy. We shall see what happens with this in 5 minutes and 46 seconds. The last time I checked, they were down Kansas City 3-16. God darn, San Francisco ain't scored since. Wow. Well, we'll see what happens with this. A lot of people got KC winning. I hope they don't. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm hoping San Francisco wins, but I don't know. And Kansas City has the ball and is third and goal. Oh, my gosh. Anyway, we're out of here, man. We may be recording on Wednesday. It all depends on you guys. If you guys write in, we'll do something. But until then, before we wrap it up and put that bow on it, always remember one thing. It is not about the consoles. It is about the games. So until possibly Wednesday, when we do it again, you guys take care. Be safe out there. Bye-bye.